Not even New Year's. Thank you to them for that. Today, you may know we celebrate Epiphany in the church calendar. That means we remember the visit of the Magi to the Holy Family. Such our theme for today. They traveled a long way. Can anybody relate to that this week? I feel like I circumnavigated the state of Missouri this past week. Glad to do so, to be able to see family. But as we talk about the Magi, our trips kind of got me thinking. I'm woefully poor as far as directionality. You know what I mean? It drives my wife crazy because even places that I know where I'm going, I still punch it into my GPS. Does somebody else do that? Like it just automatically, it's in my phone, I plug it in, it shows up on my screen. I like to know where it is that I'm going. I don't know. I like to think it's because I'm just always so deep in thought that sometimes I just miss my turns, you know? I'm solving all of the world's philosophical problems while I'm driving, and sometimes it makes me miss my turns. I've pretty much well figured out how to get here from my house, but, like to places like my son's daycare, like his doctor's offices, my wife's work, places that I've been several times where I know how to get there, I will still put it in. It's like, if it's more than 5 or 6 minutes, might as well punch it in. I think I do it because it's sort of become habit. I think one, because I do, I get lost easily. Secondly, I think I really do it also because there are some times when there could be accidents or road blockages and things like that, and that computer knows, and I don't. So it can tell me a different way to get there. I'm all about efficiency, and it's not just about that I can get lost, but I want to know I'm going the way that I'm supposed to be going. Can anybody relate to that? When I go on these long trips, if it's multiple hours, I make sure I punch it in there and I can check and look and see, okay, how much longer? Okay, how much longer? Have we made progress on this trip? Are we headed where we are supposed to be headed? But one of my worst fears in life is if, we're in a parking lot or on the street, and to have somebody roll down their window at me and be like, hey, do you know, it'll be a place I've lived, in St. Louis. I've lived there for over 20 years. Somebody rolled down their window and was like, do you know how to get to this place? And I'm like, I've never heard of the place that you're trying to go, so I can't tell you where to get there. And also, it's 2023. See what I did there? I can finally use it. I knew I was going to do it at some point. It's 2023, why are you asking me? You have a device that can tell you how to get there without having to ask for directions, and it'll be much faster. It's the worst fear of mine, and I just can try and play it off as if I'm not bad at directions, and I'll try and pretend like I know where that person is headed, but the truth is that I really don't. But I really ultimately take advantage of my lack of directionality to take advantage of the technology that can tell me this is your most efficient route to get there. This is the best way to get where you're going, and this is how long it's going to take you to get there. This is how you're going to need to get there. I like that. Because nothing else in life works that way, does it? Nothing else in life works like that. I don't get lost that way. But the problem is that the more that I get into adulthood and into parenthood, the more you realize nobody really knows what they're doing. That's the ultimate secret to life. Today is the first day any of us have ever lived today, right? Nobody knows what we're doing. We all try to act like we do. We want to impress other people by telling them that we do know what we're doing and where we're going and what to do. But the truth is we don't. We're all just figuring it out as we go. There's no GPS to punch our life into to say this is the most efficient route to take to get where you want to go. So when I realize that just like my driving directions, I don't have a crystal clear picture of where I'm going, it brings me anxiety. It tells something about my personality that even though I know where I'm going, I still want the directions printed out in front of me and for someone to say, turn here. Do you ever wish God would ever say, turn here? I know I do. So it brings questions like, what's my future pastor look like? What does the future of this church need to be? How does this life affect my family? How does the decision I'm going to make affect my family? How can I make sure my son becomes the person that God desires for him to be? Maybe you can relate to this. Because I think no matter what stage we're at in life, we've all experienced anxiety from not necessarily really knowing what we're doing or where we're going. If you're anything like me, the terms we use and the phrases we use, like life is a journey, not a destination, don't sit well with you. It's not exciting for me. Maybe you're a young person and you feel the pressure of the world telling you need to know what your future is going to be before you turn 15, before you turn 16. Or maybe you just graduated and you're in the same boat. Maybe you just got married and you don't know what's next. Maybe like me, you have a little one and have no idea what on earth you're doing. Maybe you feel this way with your career, with life in general. Maybe you're in the middle of retirement and trying to figure out what that means for you. But we mentioned that the truth is that we're all figuring it out. So we have to know how to live well in the middle of this tension. We have to know how to live well in the middle of the tension of trying to move forward when we don't always know where we're going. And today, as we remember the journey of the Magi to visit Jesus, we remember that the Magi, just like us, don't know exactly where it is that they're going. We know, in fact, very little about these mysterious people from the east that we call the Magi. But one thing we do know is that no matter when they left, their journey would have been a bit of an odyssey to make it from wherever they were to find Jesus. And they arrive not, unfortunately, to dispel and ruin your nativity scene. They don't arrive at the nativity scene, but they arrive sometime later. There's debate as to how much later, but they do arrive later. But I think today I want to pay attention to something in the story that maybe we don't always talk about. And to do that, we're going to dive into the story. It's from the book of Matthew, and it goes like this. After Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea during the time of King Herod, Magi from the east came to Jerusalem and asked, "Where is the one who has been born King of the Jews? We saw his star when it rose and have come to worship him." Okay, let's stop there. Where does it say the Magi stop? Jerusalem. Is that where the Magi were supposed to go? No. The Magi have somehow made a wrong turn here. They end up in Jerusalem. They stop to ask where Jesus is so they can worship him. Jerusalem is not their final destination. So let's keep going to see what happens. When King Herod heard this, he was disturbed, and all Jerusalem with him. When he called together all the people's chief priests and teachers of the law, he asked them where the Messiah was to be born. "In Bethlehem in Judea," they replied, "for this is what the prophet has written. But you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, for out of you will come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel." Then Herod called the Magi secretly and found out from them the exact time the star had appeared. He sent them to Bethlehem and said, "Go and search carefully for the child. As soon as you find him, report to me so that I too may go and worship him." So where was the final destination supposed to be for these Magi? Bethlehem. But Herod, the Roman ruler in the area, has poor motives and sends them on their way to find Jesus in Bethlehem and report back to him what they learn. But the story continues. After they had heard the king, they went on their way, and the star they had seen, when it rose, went ahead of them until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were overjoyed. On coming to the house, they saw the child with his mother Mary, and they bowed down and worshipped him. Then they opened their treasures and presented him with gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to go back to Herod, they returned to their country by another route. So finally, they encounter Jesus, worship him, and are sent home by another route. But But imagine this, these magi travel this great distance from the Far East with such precision that they actually end up in the same country that the star was bringing them to. But they end up in Jerusalem, of all places. And if you don't know, Bethlehem to Jerusalem, 10-ish miles. 10 miles. We don't know where the Magi leave from, but they've left with such precision that they've made this journey so far, and yet they think, gosh, let's stop here for directions. Do you ever go on a road trip and you're like 20 minutes from where you're supposed to go and somebody's like, I got to go to the bathroom. You're just like, just hold it. They wind up 10 miles away from their destination. Even back then, that's walking distance. Today, that's walking distance. They go all this way to end up a few miles from Jesus, only to stop and ask for directions. They travel hundreds of miles of who knows what kind of conditions they were dealing with an unending perseverance that led them into the country of our Savior Jesus. They're a reasonable walking distance away, and it's in this moment that they decide to stop and say, you know what, I think we're lost. They were closer than ever, and yet they still felt like they were lost. This stop in Jerusalem makes no sense in the story. Maybe they were confused to be so close to where Jesus was and yet couldn't find him. Maybe they thought, well, surely this town, Jerusalem, that we end up in, this is where the king is to be born. This is where the hoopla is going to be in a city like Jerusalem. Maybe they got so close and felt like they didn't see partying in the streets, they didn't see people coming from miles and miles away and thought, this is odd. Let's ask for directions. Maybe their lack of understanding led them to believe that the king would be the right person. Yes. Surely this king, King Herod, is going to want to celebrate the birth of another king, is going to want to celebrate these events that have transpired. But no matter how they ended up this way, despite their perfectly clear vision and direction at the start that led them from wherever they left in the east into Jerusalem, along the way, their perfectly clear vision became blurry. The Magi started to lose their direction and ended up a little bit lost. Have you ever started off doing something in your life with a crystal clear direction? Somewhere along the way, you just got a little lost. Maybe at first your marriage was wonderful and it made sense and it was perfect, and now it's a little bit more difficult. It feels a little bit less fulfilling than it did at first. Maybe something like the loss of a loved one has caused you to lose some direction and to feel lost. Maybe your relationship with your kids has taken a turn from where it was. Maybe it's your career. But we all know it's a totally normal thing to start out with a clear vision, only to have the realities of life cause us to get off track on our journey and feel a little bit lost. See, we hear nothing in the story about the Magi's journey from the Far East into Jerusalem. We don't hear about them having trouble on their journeys until they end up lost in Jerusalem. So like the Magi, we too may start out with a clear vision, an idea of where we're going in life and what we're supposed to be doing and what fulfills our purpose and how we're supposed to be making a difference. But then we end up a little bit lost. Maybe you feel that way right now. Maybe you felt that way before. The question is not a matter of if we wind up a little bit lost. The question is when we wind up a little bit lost in life, how do we get unlost? I think to answer this question, we can actually learn from the Magi here. See, the Magi have gotten a little bit off course. But even when they get a little bit off course, their purpose and their pursuit remains the same. They didn't veer from the understood final destination. They might have gotten off track a little bit, but their focus remained. Their focus remained on the star. Their purpose remained fixed on pursuing Jesus. The thing that gave them the inspiration to take off in the first place from the Far East was the very thing that they stayed fixed on throughout their very journey, even when they felt lost in Jerusalem. The Magi might have ended up misdirected, but they continued to follow the light. So as we head into this new year, we may get lost, we may get off the beaten path. We may get off the road we thought that we were supposed to be on. Maybe we head into this year and we're like, this is going to be the best year ahead because I am set up for success this year. And then by June, this isn't how this was supposed to go. This isn't what I thought was going to happen. But if we keep our focus on pursuing the light, chasing after the light of the world, we will always end up just where we need to be. It might not be on our schedule. It might not be a perfectly mapped out GPS that tells me all the right turns to take to be able to get there. But if we follow the light of the world, we will be where we need to be. God will use any misdirection for God's glory. If we follow the light of the world that never extinguishes, that never dims, even when we end up lost, we have hope because we still know where we're headed. We might know we've gotten off track. In fact, it's because of the very light they followed that the Magi knew they ended up off track. But if we follow the light, we have hope because we still know, even when we're lost, where we are headed. We all get lost along the way. The question is, where are we going? What are we chasing? What are we pursuing? See, it's after the Magi have their encounter with Jesus that their directions become back into focus. Because what happens after the Magi encounter Jesus? They're sent home by another route. Their directions become clear once again after their encounter with Jesus. After they met Jesus, they went home by another route to protect themselves and to protect Jesus. But see, here's the thing. We pay attention to the Magi's pursuit of Jesus, and we often miss the fact that Jesus is pursuing the Magi at the same time. No, Jesus doesn't travel from the Far East to meet the Magi. Jesus travels from someplace else. Jesus pursued the Magi as well. Jesus came to earth in order to pursue the Magi with his love and grace, in order to become closer to them and in order to become closer to each and every one of us. It's the pursuit of Jesus that ensures we are always on the right path, even if we feel lost. But we can hope in the fact that while we pursue Jesus, Jesus is also constantly and relentlessly pursuing us. Jesus' love and grace chases us down in the middle of all of life's journeys. Even if we feel lost, the love of God is able to find us.